If you think every Washington quarter after 1964 is just a copper-nickel afterthought, you're about to hear a very different story. Because hidden inside one of the most chaotic periods in U.S. mint history are three quarters that rewrote value, rarity, and collector demand. These coins were born during metal shortages, silent mint marks, and rush production, and today they stand among the most misunderstood yet valuable Washington quarters ever struck. Pay close attention, because these are the kinds of coins that collectors spend years trying to upgrade, and many people unknowingly spend for face value. 1965 Washington Quarter Dollar Coin. The 1965 Washington Quarter Dollar marks one of the most dramatic turning points in American coinage history. This is not just another year in the Washington Quarter series. It represents the exact moment the United States abandoned silver in circulating quarters, ending an era that had defined American money for generations. That single decision changed everything, from how coins were made to how they would be collected decades later. Before 1965, Washington quarters were struck in 90% silver, a composition that tied their value directly to precious metal. Rising silver prices in the early 1960s created widespread hoarding, circulation shortages, and public anxiety. By 1964, the Treasury could no longer maintain silver coinage without massive losses. The result was the Coinage Act of 1965, which eliminated silver from quarters entirely and replaced it with a copper-nickel-clad composition bonded to a pure copper core. The 1965 Washington quarter was the first quarter ever struck in this new format. That alone gives it enormous historical weight. It is the dividing line between classic silver coinage and the modern era. The public reaction was immediate. People distrusted the new coins, searched obsessively for silver, and blamed shortages on collectors. In response, the U.S. Mint made a radical move. It removed all mint marks from coins between 1965 and 1967 to discourage hoarding and speculation. As a result, the 1965 Washington quarter carries no mint mark, even though it was struck at both the Philadelphia and Denver facilities. That decision has fueled collector fascination ever since. The mintage of the 1965 quarter was massive, totaling approximately 1.8 billion coins. On the surface, that seems to eliminate any possibility of rarity. But numismatics is never that simple. These quarters were produced at breakneck speed under intense political pressure, using hastily prepared dies, often poorly aligned and overused. Quality control was sacrificed for quantity, and it shows. Design features remain consistent with John Flanagan's original Washington portrait, but many 1965 quarters exhibit weak strikes. Washington's hair detail is often flat, especially above the ear and along the Q ribbon. On the reverse, the eagle's breast feathers frequently appear soft or incomplete, and the leaf veins in the olive branches are often indistinct. Fully struck examples are noticeably scarce. Surface quality is another major issue. These coins were struck in huge volumes and dumped into circulation immediately. Bag marks, contact abrasions, and dull luster are the norm, not the exception. As a result, high-grade survivors are surprisingly rare. In circulated condition, a 1965 Washington quarter is worth face value. But once you move into uncirculated territory, the story changes fast. In mint state 65, values typically range from $15 to $30. At MS 66, prices climb into the $60 to $120 range. MS 67 examples are true condition rarities, often commanding $800 to $1,500 depending on eye appeal. Coins graded MS 68 are extraordinarily rare and can exceed $4,000 when they appear at auction. Errors elevate the 1965 quarter into an entirely different category. This year is notorious for minting mistakes. Off-center strikes are relatively common and highly collectible, especially when the date remains visible. Clipped planchets, broad strikes, and double strikes are also documented. One of the most sought-after varieties is the doubled die obverse, where subtle doubling can appear in the lettering of Liberty or I in God We Trust. Another legendary error involves transitional planchets. Although extremely rare, authenticated 1965 quarters struck on leftover silver planchets exist and are among the most valuable modern U.S. coins. These pieces can sell for tens of thousands of dollars and are considered crown jewels in advanced collections. Collector interest in the 1965 Washington quarter remains intense. It is a foundational coin for anyone building a complete Washington quarter set, and registry competition has only increased demand for high-grade examples. Its role as the first clad quarter ensures it will always occupy a special place in U.S. coin history. 1966 Washington Quarter Dollar Coin. The 1966 Washington Quarter Dollar continues the turbulent narrative that began in 1965. If the 1965 quarter represents the shock of transition, the 1966 quarter reflects the struggle to stabilize a broken system. It was struck during a time when the U.S. Mint was still racing to flood the economy with coins, still refusing to use mint marks, and still dealing with public distrust and hoarding. Like its predecessor, the 1966 quarter carries no mint mark. It was produced primarily at the Philadelphia Mint, with Denver contributing capacity under the same anonymous designation. The goal remained the same: eliminate regional distinctions and discourage speculation. The mintage for the 1966 Washington quarter was approximately 821 million coins, less than half of the previous year, but still enormous. Yet despite this high production, truly high-quality examples are remarkably difficult to locate. Design consistency remained unchanged, but strike quality often declined further. Dies were used aggressively, sometimes well past their optimal lifespan. This resulted in weak central details, mushy lettering, and reduced relief across both sides of the coin. Fully struck eagles with sharp breast feathers are notably scarce, and Washington's hair often lacks definition along the upper curls. Luster on 1966 quarters tends to be muted. Many uncirculated examples display a dull, satiny sheen rather than vibrant cartwheel brilliance. Surface marks are plentiful, reflecting the hurried handling and bulk storage methods of the time. In circulated grades, the 1966 quarter holds no premium, but uncirculated pieces quickly separate themselves. MS-65 examples typically sell for $12 to $25. MS-66 coins often bring $50 to $100. MS-67 examples are rare and can command $900 to $1,800. At MS-68, values soar past $5,000 when a specimen appears, which happens very infrequently. Error coins from 1966 are a major driver of collector interest. Off-center strikes, especially dramatic ones, are popular. Broad strikes and partial collar errors also appear. Grease-filled dies produced coins with missing or weak lettering, creating visually striking anomalies that collectors prize. One particularly intriguing category involves double dies. While confirmed double die varieties are scarce, subtle examples showing extra thickness or separation in the date or motto have been certified and are aggressively pursued. Historically, the 1966 Washington quarter represents uncertainty. It circulated during a period of inflation fears, metal shortages, and public confusion about coinage. It is a tangible reminder of how fragile monetary systems can be when economic forces collide with tradition. Collectors often overlook the 1966 quarter, assuming it lacks significance. But seasoned numismatists know better. Its condition rarity, error potential, and role in the mint-markless era make it a sleeper coin with long-term appeal. 1967 Washington Quarter Dollar Coin. The 1967 Washington Quarter Dollar closes the most unusual three-year chapter in U.S. quarter production. It is the final year without mint marks and the last coin struck under emergency minting policies. By 1967, the mint was beginning to regain control, but the scars of the transition years were still evident. The mintage for the 1967 quarter reached approximately 1.5 billion coins, reflecting renewed production confidence. But quantity once again came at the expense of quality. While some improvements are visible compared to 1965 and 1966, inconsistency remained a defining trait. Design details show slight improvement in Washington's portrait, with marginally better hair definition in some strikes. However, weak reverses persisted. The eagle's chest and wing tips often lack full feather separation, and flatness in the olive branches remains common. Surface quality continues to challenge collectors. Many 1967 quarters exhibit heavy contact marks, cloudy luster, or planchet imperfections. Fully brilliant, sharply struck examples are elusive and command strong premiums. In mint state 65, values typically range from $10 to $25. MS-66 examples bring $40 to $90. MS-67 coins are rare and often sell for $700 to $1,400. MS-68 specimens are exceptionally rare and can exceed $6,000, reflecting intense competition among registry collectors. Errors are plentiful and diverse. Off-center strikes, double strikes, and struck-through errors are well documented. One of the most desirable varieties involves lamination errors, where metal defects cause peeling or separation, creating dramatic visual appeal. Another fascinating category includes wrong planchet strikes, where quarter designs appear on foreign or incorrect blanks. These are exceedingly rare and highly valuable, often reaching five-figure prices when authenticated. Collector interest in the 1967 quarter has surged as awareness grows about the importance of the mint-markless era. It represents the end of an experiment, the closing chapter before the mint returned to normal operations in 1968 with restored mint marks. Together, the 1965, 1966, and 1967 Washington quarters form a trilogy unlike anything else in U.S. coinage. They are products of crisis, compromise, and change. They challenge the idea that value is determined by silver content alone and reward collectors who understand condition rarity, historical context, and minting nuance. These quarters are not just coins. They are witnesses to a turning point in American history. And for collectors who recognize their significance, they offer both prestige and potential that continues to grow with time.